an H1 truck is built specifically for the heavier chassis, the truck chassis. It's 6 inches wider than an H2, and it's built to go on the 1-ton dualies such as the GM, the Ford, the Chev, the Mitsubishis, the Hinos, the cab-overs, and it's basically your big heavy-duty setup. The H2 is still a big heavy-duty setup, but the looks on it are actually deceiving. Even though this box is only 6 inches narrower, some people think it actually looks smaller than a typical duct cleaning truck. But in reality, it's still the exact same height and everything else is the same, it's just a little bit narrower. The nice thing about these trucks, these H2s, is that you can put them on the new modern platforms, which is the ProMasters, you know, the van cabs, the Ford Transits, and the Mercedes Sprinters. And they save you a ton of money in terms of economy. They're cheaper to buy, they're cheaper to operate, they're little V6 engines, and they're also smaller, so they can get into tighter spaces. If you got old streets and old neighborhoods and these older cities, it's pretty hard to get some of these big trucks down those streets or even on driveways. That's where the H2 plays that role. This is the 12-foot on the Transit, and first thing I'm going to show you is the storage. Now, we know how important storage is to air duct cleaning companies, so this one actually has a slide-out cargo bed. So this is kind of a luxury item. We don't normally make it on a lot of them, but this can actually slide out the other side, so that way you don't have to get into your truck to grab your stuff out. But the 12-foots have a 2-foot storage bay, and that's dedicated storage. You don't have to share that with your engine bay at all. If you go up to 14 feet, we've got this one over here. So this is a 14-foot truck, so it has 4 feet of storage inside. Now, typically, we just do a simple plywood shelf. If you want fancy build-outs in there to hold your chemicals and your furnace filters and stuff like that, let us know. We can, sometimes we'll build custom stuff, depending on how busy we are. But at the end of the day, I always found a simple plywood shelf is the easiest, and then you just build out whatever you want once you get it yourselves. So this is a 4-foot storage bay. We've got 2-foot storage bay. Now, one of the most critical things that we heard back from all the customers is portables, a good portable, is becoming a really important part of the duct cleaning job, because there's just some times where you just don't have enough hose to get to the furnace. So we incorporate that mandatory in every single truck we build. There's always going to be a spot for a portable in the front. And of course, we use our own Hypervac hybrid portables. So in every single truck, there's always room for a portable. Okay, so the middle compartment is your engine bay and your easy clean out dirt bin. So we got rid of the old traditional style dirt bins that you see in the old conventional duct trucks for a couple of reasons. First thing is they rust. You got all that dirt sitting in a bin, and it rains and the water gets into the bags and creeps into the loads and loads of dirt, and then the moisture just sits in there and rots and rots and rots, and within 2 or 3 years you've got a beautiful $100,000 duct truck that's completely rotten and rusting from the inside. So to do away with all that, all your dust and debris gets filtered out through your filter bag on the roof, but then it all drops into your storage bin. And all you gotta do is throw a garbage bag in here, empty it every couple weeks, 2 to 4 weeks. And it's clean, it's simple, there's no more trips to the dump, no more dump fees to have to pay. So it's economical, it saves you money. It saves you time because you're not driving up to the dump. And most importantly, those old bins were famous for holding 800 pounds, 1,000 pounds of dirt, which is great because you only have to go to the dump twice a year. But does it make sense to really be driving around with 1,000 pounds of your customer's dirt? Think of the extra money and the weight you're spending in fuel bills every day. And how about that extra 1,000 pounds you're packing on in terms of on your brakes and the wear and tear on the transmission, all things that go along with that extra weight. It just doesn't make sense to be hauling around 6 months worth of dirt every day when you can just empty it out every couple of weeks. So your easy cleanup bin, it's a cheap, easy, plastic container, it doesn't rust, and it's easy to change. So that's the easy cleanup bin. So one of the favorite things that I like about the new H1 and H2 duct trucks is that you no longer have to get on the roof to open and close your bag doors. We looked at using fancy lifting actuation mechanisms and motors and tracks to make things slide back and forth. And tracks, for instance, you can get ice caught in the tracks, so they won't open and close in the wintertime, especially if you're running during a snow. And there's just extra levels of complications every time you add a motor or switch or things like that. So we solved all of those problems by doing something really simple. We got a pole. And so all you do is you take the pole, you let the gas shocks do the work. Done. Now your bag door is open. And then to close it, we put a step here. The bags don't always fall perfectly in spot. So you get your bags right here, throw them in place. Quick and easy. Once they're there, just pull down your strap. Then you lock your strap down. you're good to go. Bag door open, closed. You never had to get on the roof once, so there's no risks of falling anymore. And it's especially helpful if you're going on to oil sands or oil sites or special jobs where they make you wear fall restraints. So no more fall restraints, none of that stuff. Quick and easy. Okay, so behind your engine bay, we've got an independent fuel tank that runs separate from the truck's fuel tank. Now, we used to do where we would run both engines off the fuel tank, but we've changed it to its own independent fuel tank in the back, and it's 80 liters. And the reason we made it that size is because basically it's going to run out of fuel around the same time that your truck runs out of fuel. So you're not going to the gas station anymore, you're just filling 2 tanks when you get there. And it's quick and easy. Now, the reason we did that is because in order to run those other 2 tanks off the truck's fuel tank, it meant that we had to tee off, run a bunch of valves and fuel pumps, and it was that extra layer of complications that we're trying to avoid. Because we're trying to make this thing as reliable as we can. That's the whole point of the system, to get away from PTO and the unreliability of that aspect. So this is why it's got its own independent fuel tank, and it's just parked in the back. Now coming around the side here, we've got a safety ladder, and that's so you can get on the roof because we do have a full-length ladder rack on the top. And so that's so you can store your ladders. And then if you come up all the way to the top, we've also got safety catwalk, and it's anti-grip to prevent falls. And then even the ladder rung, if you come close up on the ladder, you can see that the ladder rung is an actual ladder rung. It's not just a 1x1 bar, and it's got safety grip on it as well. And the ladders are all made out of steel, and they're powder coated. All our bumpers are our own custom Hypervac bumpers. They're stainless steel with grip tape. Hose storage, probably one of the most critical parts of a duct cleaning truck because you always want to have enough hose. This truck will easily hold 175 to 200 feet of vacuum hose. Even at 7 feet wide, which is the H2, you can get 175 feet of 10-inch and 8-inch hose in here, no problem. And then our intakes for all the hose, we always use a 10-inch intake off the fan, which is standard with our safety guard inside. 2 cooling fans, and these doors have to remain open when you're operating. So that way these cooling fans pull that hot air off those engines and blow it outside. And it actually works very, very well. It's very efficient. So here we have in the other side of the engine bay, we've got your air compressor. We put a standard self-winding hose reel. That comes standard, it's not an option. And then we've just got interior lighting on everything, and the interior lighting's in all 3 bays, the storage bay, the engine bay, and the hose bay. And then here, this is the lighting for the exterior lights. Pretty basic stuff, very, very simple. The Honda engine has its own tach and hour meter right here that's built in. You got a fuel gauge for your fuel tank, and then you've got a tach and hour meter for your vacuum engine. Now, when it comes to air compressors, this is kind of a loaded subject, I guess, because everyone has their own preference and brand for air compressors, and so do I. So we've chosen to use cast air compressors for a number of reasons. Now, if you have a specific brand of air compressor you want to use, we'll put it in there. It doesn't matter to us. My personal preference, I love Quincy compressors. I don't love the price of them. And that's why we don't use them, because they've just gotten so expensive lately. And so we switched over to cast airs, and there's a lot of different versions. We like this one because it's a 4-piston head, and it runs at very, very low RPMs. And so low RPMs means less heat, less problems. And in terms of performance, this cast air compressor is 43 CFM at 175 PSI, so it's a 2-stage unit. And this is a 20 horsepower Honda engine. This is one of the largest engines Honda makes. And so you've got this massive force driving that massive head. And the beautiful part is this thing's 43 CFM. If you compare that to a Quincy 325, they're 18 CFM at 175 PSI. And a Quincy 370, their big compressor, is 50 CFM at 175 PSI. So this is right between a Quincy 340 and a Quincy 370 in terms of performance. But it's a third to half of the price. So you'd have to wear this out. And this is what we call a 10 to 15 year compressor. So when it finally does wear out in 15 years from now, you throw a new one in and you still spent less than buying a Quincy. So cast air, we're very happy with them. Plus, the people that build these are great people. They're made down in Minnesota. And if there's ever a question or problem, you just pick up the phone and call Pat or Clint, and they'll get you going instantly. So that's why we use cast air compressors, 30-gallon tank. Now, the other flip of the coin is having your compressor and your vacuum motors separated. We've had a couple of people phone back and go, well, yeah, now you got 2 of these engines to break down, yeah. But in reality, it's a lot simpler, mainly because there's so much dryer vent cleaning, and there's, in modern duct cleaning, there's so many times when all you need is your air compressor. they talk about how they've got to turn on their vacuum engine just to get air pressure. Like, you talk to some of these guys, they'll spend a week, 2 weeks at a job just doing dryer vents, and that whole time they ran their vacuum that just ran without any hose hooked up to it just to get their air pressure going, which just doesn't make sense anymore. So here, now you just run the compressor when you need it, you just run the vacuum when you need it. And in modern duct cleaning, a lot of times you're actually pulling your portable out and running your portable because you're doing commercial work, there's no way you can get enough hose. So now you've got your compressor that you just run with your portable, and it saves you a tremendous amount of money because you're just running exactly what you need. Okay, so from this control box, it's very, very simple. You turn the key, kicks on your fans, turn a little farther and it starts it. If you can start a lawnmower or start a car, you can start this vacuum. It's very simple, especially with the electronic fuel injection. There's not even a choke to worry about. And you just pull out your throttle, lock it to set, and you're good to go. When you're done, unlock it, push it in, idles your engine down, turn your key off, you're done. Very, very simple operation. So now in terms of the H2 and the chassis that sit on, they each have their pros and cons. A lot of guys like still the old traditional 1-ton dualies for the look. You really don't need it anymore. You can actually go with a 1-ton with single wheels on the back. You don't even need dualies anymore because these trucks are so light. One of the big pros of this style of truck is this whole unit, complete, a 12-foot box, weighs 7,680 pounds. This chassis is rated for 9,950 pounds, so you're still a couple thousand pounds under its weight rating. And that's one of the worst things you can do with a duct cleaning truck, is build them so heavy that you're maxing out, because they're not designed to run 100% of that weight rating all the time. So we're only running around 75% of the weight rating, which means you're not wearing out brakes, you're not wearing out transmissions and engines, and all the things that go along with a really heavy truck. The nice thing about these trucks is that in big cities, or even in the old cities where the streets are really narrow, you can get these things just about anywhere. They go down, V6 engines, get great gas mileage, and we can build them on the Transit, the Dodge ProMaster, and the Mercedes Sprinter. So the H1, the platform, I'll just go through it quickly because we've already just covered most of the stuff in detail on the H2 earlier in the video. But it's your same basic setup. You got a compressor, hose reel, a control panel. It's your engine bay. Then you got your front storage bay, 2-foot, simple, single shelf. Nice, easy setup. If we walk around to the other side, your easy clean out bin. This is just a simple guard that we put on so that the bags can't enter into the engine bay when it's running. Some trucks have them, some trucks don't. It's usually an option. And you got your batteries, your clean out bin, your door rod. Okay, so inside our shop here, I'm going to show you the aluminum construction methods on how we build a truck and why we build a truck. Just in passing, before I go over to the other side, I just thought I'd mention one of the options we have for these trucks is T takeoffs. So you can have the hose vacuum straight out of the back of the truck if you want, or you can have it simply, we could do an 8-inch or a 10-inch inlet opening. Normally the hookup in the back is a 10-inch, but if you wanted an 8, we can do this. One's a custom 8. And this T takeoff is made out of thick steel pipe. It's not like spiral ducting, so it's actually a good strong steel construction. And basically just put a cap on each side. This truck actually has 125 feet of hose in it, and I'll just show you how much space is left over. So that's 125 feet of Flexos T7W. There's easily enough room in there to fit another 25 or 50 feet of hose. So the storage room in these trucks is far more than the old traditional duct trucks, just because of the design itself. Okay, so what we have here is the HAVAC system, and this is what generates all the suction inside our duct cleaning trucks. And it's a far cry better, in our opinion, than using the PTO drive system to generate suction. And I'll get into the PTO stuff after, but this is what we've created, and we've been building it for a few years now. It's become very successful. And this will generate pretty much the exact same amount of suction as our old PTO driven trucks. And it's much simpler. It's a much simpler design. So to start off, we've got a 37 horsepower Briggs & Stratton Vanguard engine. And these new engines are actually EFI, so they're electronic fuel injected. So they're a lot easier to start in cold weather, a lot easier to regulate. And the fuel injection basically controls the whole engine, idle temperatures, everything. So it's a very simple, well-tested engine. The Vanguard is actually a big block series engine, so they're actually made by Toyota in Japan. And so they're very, very high quality. Coming off the engine, we've got a fluid coupler. And that's one of the most unique things about the HAVAC system, is that the fluid coupler is actually a disc filled with oil. And what happens is the engine comes out, drives this side of the coupler, and then oil shoots to the outside of the coupler, and that's what drives the shaft and the fan. So one of the beautiful parts about this is this fan is never actually connected to the engine. What's turning it is the oil, okay? And one of the nice things about using a fluid coupler is that it gives us an extra level of safety. So if you suck something up into that fan, you're not going to take out the crank of the engine, which can happen with a lot of these other systems. So the fluid coupler blocks everything, keeps it safe, and it also absorbs the harmonic vibration that comes off the fan when it's spinning naturally. And so that doesn't transfer through into the engine, so the engines last a very, very long time. Next, what you've got is a 2-inch shaft on high-speed bearings. So you've got that's the same thickness of shaft that we used to run when we were running 40-inch blades. So it's a very thick, sturdy, hardened steel shaft, and then high-speed bearings, and these are the only 2 bearings you have to grease. A couple of shots in here every couple of weeks if you're running daily. And that's the only maintenance with the bearings that you have to deal with. If you come around the front, we've got our custom blade, and we build these blades ourselves in-house. We send them out to an independent company and have them balanced. And the reason we can still generate tremendous amounts of suction and have it be comparable to what our old PTO trucks used to be is our old trucks used to run a 40-inch blade, but they only spun at 1,200 RPMs. These new blades are 20 inches in diameter, but they're spinning at 2,800 to 3,200 RPMs. So they're spinning almost 3 times faster, and that's why we can run a smaller blade. Smaller blade, same suction, runs faster, much easier to run. And then in terms of maintenance, very simple. Change the oil every, say, 100 hours, 200 hours on the engine. Use synthetic 5W30. Check your oil every day. It's pretty basic, you know. And then as one extra added feature is we do run an alternator on the back of it through a stub shaft, and the alternator generates the electricity to power the cooling fans inside the unit. So it's all very simple, clean, economical to run. Also, these engines, if you're spinning them, you know, 3,000 RPMs, you're only burning maybe a gallon of fuel an hour. And so that's the other part. These things are very cheap to run. So the HAVAC system in general, quick, simple, easy, clean. And if it does break down, it's easy to fix. So the odd time customers will ask us if we'll still build a PTO system. And I kind of liken the PTO system to a Rube Goldberg machine. You got this extremely complex set of events. You got an engine, a PTO, transmission. You got belts and pulleys and bearing stands that all need greasing. And you got this complex series of events happening just to make a fan turn. It's pretty hard to go back 50 years and build a PTO system when you've got a great system like the HAVAC system. Now, if you compare gas usage with a HAVAC system and a compressor setup like this versus a PTO gas truck or a diesel gas truck, it's pretty tremendous gas savings, actually. So if you look at a diesel PTO-driven truck, this HAVAC system and this compressor system will save you about 30% fuel costs if you compare it to a diesel-driven truck. If you compare this system to a gas PTO truck, your savings are even higher. You're upwards of 50% savings. So if you're spending theoretically a couple grand a month on gas, you can expect your fuel bills to probably drop 30 to 50%, isn't out of the question. So on top of all this stuff that makes it more efficient, fuel savings alone can almost make your lease payment if you're leasing the truck. So here at Hypervac, pretty much everything we build is done in-house. So we actually design everything in AutoCAD on 3D on the computer first. Then we send out everything to our laser cutter. Laser cuts everything. And then it comes down and we weld and assemble everything under one roof. So right here, actually, we got our fan station. So here we're making the fan blades for our truck. And so this is a station. This is one of the fan blades we're putting in another machine. It's not a Duct truck blade, but it's exactly the same, just a smaller version. So, and then over here we got our master table. And the master table is where we build all our floor frames, the framing. So the floors for all our trucks and the roof sections are all welded out as one piece, so they're very solid. And all our welders here are red seal journeymen. They're not apprentices, and they've been doing this a lot of years, and they're very, very skilled at what they do. If we come through here, get out of the welding shop, this is our first stage assembly. So here we've got a floor going on a Ford Transit. So this is basically it's all C-channel construction, 3/16 thick aluminum, and it's all welded out and built as one solid piece. And it's one of the most critical parts of the construction of the truck. And here that's the door section, and then we've also got a roof. This roof is actually going on this truck there. And then here we've got second stage of construction. So here we've got this is also a Ford Transit, and it's going into its final stages here, where we basically take all the pieces that are laser cut and bent together. One of the first things you notice, obviously, is that it's white, but more importantly, it's powder coated. So powder coated finishes, it's double the thickness of paint, it's far tougher, far more scratch resistant. And if you notice in our construction method, we got our floor as one piece, and then all the fenders, the sidewalls, and the roof section are bolted on. And we powder coat everything first before we bolt it together. And one of the reasons we do that is so that all these grooves in here, there's actual powder coating between all the seams. So corrosion can't get in there, water can't get in there and start to eat away at the finish. Now secondly, if you notice, our trucks are made entirely out of aluminum. The whole box system is made out of aluminum. You won't find steel in the actual box, and especially stainless steel. Now, we can do steel and stainless steel, but I just don't recommend it anymore, mainly because steel is very, very heavy and it rusts. Stainless steel is extremely heavy. So, and when you move up to the steel and the stainless steel boxes, you've automatically added another $30,000 or $40,000 to your price tag. Mainly because the chassis to carry those trucks has to be much heavier. Now you need a 550 or like a International TerraStar just to carry that box because you made it out of steel. And then steel also rusts very quickly. I've seen Duct trucks literally 3 years old and the steel's completely eaten away and rotted away on almost a nearly new truck. So we use aluminum mainly because it doesn't rust, and more importantly because it's super light. This whole truck weighs, the whole box is probably around 3,500 pounds. And one of the advantages of having a lightweight box means that you don't have to put it on a big heavy chassis. You can put it on a nice Ford Transit, Dodge ProMaster, little 1-ton dually, or even a dually, or even a 1-ton without duals. Because it's so light, it opens up the options to pretty much any kind of chassis you want to put it on. Now, we can still put it on the big chassis, the Hinos, the Mitsubishis, the TerraStars if you want. You just don't need to anymore. And because it's so light, you don't have all that wear and tear on your brakes, your transmission, and all the things that go along with that over heavy truck. And it's much lighter, it's economical to run. These new cab chassis have V6 engines. You get great gas mileage, 20-25 miles a gallon. And the nice part is anybody can drive these things. You don't need a specially trained driver to drive a big 550 or the big TerraStar trucks. This whole package here in a 12-foot or 14-foot box, just a rough numbers, you're around 45, 50 grand kind of thing. And that would include everything but your vacuum hose. I try not to supply vacuum hose if I can avoid it, but we'll supply it if you need us to. But the nice part of it is because of the design, because it's aluminum, it gives you the option to use pretty much anything you need for chassis. These chassis run around 25 grand. You can also go up to a 4-wheel drive chassis like the truck chassis. And 25 grand, 30 grand. So you got 45, 50, 25. A lot of these guys are getting into these trucks for $65,000, $70,000 complete, which is roughly about half the price of what our old PTO trucks used to run, because we had to go with such heavy-duty chassis, and the boxes back then were all steel. So you're getting a much better truck, an aluminum truck that won't rust, a much lighter truck, so it's cheaper to operate. And then you're also getting a chassis that you can pick and choose pretty much any chassis you want, and it's all coming in at half the price of a PTO truck. So in terms of pricing, you're getting a better product for less money. And lastly, when you buy a truck from us, when you look at some of this stuff, the trucks or even our portable vacuum systems, you'll notice that it all comes from a background of air duct cleaning. Like, my father started the company back in 79, 1980. I grew up cleaning ducts as a kid, and so everything you see here was designed around my own experience of being on the tools for 25 plus years of cleaning ducts. And so when you see some of this stuff, you're getting stuff that's been designed by duct cleaners for duct cleaning. So feel free to give us a call anytime. It's usually me that answers the phone when you call, but we don't have secretaries here. We are a small company. We only have 10, 11 staff altogether. And I like to answer my own phone. So if you call in, chances are you're going to get me. If not, you'll get my business partner, Scott, who does the intricate design stuff. We're very hands-on people. And yeah, Our toll-free number is 1-866-315-5777. And let us know when you have more questions. We'll be happy to walk you through all your different options and go from there. Thanks for watching.